Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of It Takes a Viking, the official podcast of the Salem State University Alumni Association. I am Mike Mitchell, Assistant Director of Alumni Relations at the university and a proud graduate of the class of 2007. Joining me today is a graduate from the Bertillon School of Business in 2018 from the Graduate School. He is currently a research analyst at Global X ETFs and good friend, Mr. Pedro Palandrani. Pedro, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, Mike. Thanks for having me.
It's going to be a wonderful conversation. It'd be great to catch up with you. So let's get right into it. First off, let our listeners know how you ended up at Salem State.
Sure. Since the very beginning, I'm originally from Venezuela, and, as it may be common knowledge these days, I think Venezuela has been really facing a kind of severe economic and political crisis that led me to find a better future for my family and myself. And so back in 2015, I started looking for MBA programs in the United States, and Massachusetts is extremely well known for having great higher education programs. And I didn't know too much about Massachusetts, less so about Salem. For sure, but I came across Salem State while doing some of the research, and I was not only looking for affordable education, but I was expecting to have great education, and I think that's something that Salem State really offers. But what really drove me to start my grad program at Salem State was the level of attention that I got from the admissions department and the international students office. It was unbelievable. I still remember vividly all the conversations and emails and phone calls I had with Jamie Satter from the admissions office and Nellie Wadsworth from the international student office. I got so much help that for me it was like a no-brainer, right? I've been getting a lot of support from Salem State, and again, without knowing too much about the place, I was actually lucky to end up at Salem State. But that's kind of a high-level view of how I started at Salem State.
Great. And so during your time at Salem State, I know there was a few different things that you were passionate about. You had served on the alumni board of directors for a little while, but I know you were also very involved in the Cabot Bloomberg Lab, Cabot Wealth Management Bloomberg Lab being created. Talk a little bit about some of your work on that project, and then finally seeing it come to fruition, just not too long ago.
Super happy that that's now a reality for every business students at Salem State University. But when I started working in the industry, I realized how important it was to actually get to use Bloomberg Terminal. The Bloomberg Terminal is the gold standard software within the finance industry at large. Like you can use it for multiple functions within the industry. But I didn't know that while I was a student, but once I entered the industry, I actually learned about the Bloomberg Terminal. That's something that I learned when working at Cabot, and I'm sure we're going to talk a little bit about my work there. But when I realized how important it was, I talked to Rob Lutz, whom today I think it's the chair of the Board of Trustees at Salem State University. Fantastic person. And we talked about the Bloomberg Lab and the need for a Bloomberg Lab for Salem State University. So for me, it was really something that could exponentially allow me to learn about the markets and the current position that I had at Cabot, doing research for investments in general. So we talked to Rob, we talked to many people within Salem State University. I made some presentations to the finance community around Salem. And finally, we were able to raise the capital and get the Bloomberg Lab. And of course, all the credit here to Rob Lutz and the Cabot Wealth Management team that really were able to make that a reality. I think that what they're doing with that lab is a unique opportunity for any business students at Salem State. And I'm sure it will go a long way for all the students that are using the Bloomberg terminal today.
And so you mentioned working at Cabot, working with Rob a little bit. Talk a little bit about um, how the work you did as a student led to the opportunity at Cabot, which kind of led to the opportunity that you have now, and talk a little bit about what you're doing now at
Sure,
GlobalX.
sure. So if I start kind of with the latter, today I work at Global X ETFs. I'm a research analyst, and I'm a thematic research analyst, and I cover everything everything related to kind of these technology related sectors, such as artificial intelligence, robotics, cloud computing, Internet of Things, e-commerce. So I'm covering all of those themes, the way we call it. In GlobalX is an ETF issuer based out of Manhattan. We manage about $14 billion in assets under management. But it all started through Salem State, like you said. Back in 2016, during my first year of the MBA program, I was taking some finance courses and really getting involved with leadership opportunities that Salem State offers. And through the program and my involvement, I was able to get an internship at Cabot Wealth Management, like you say. And I'm sure many of the listeners or students know about Cabot, but it's a local wealth management firm in Salem. So they actually posted this research analyst position that year in 2016, and I applied online. But there was also a phone number in the posting. So, I picked up my phone and called to ask about the opportunity. And I really was very, very nervous because it seemed like a dream opportunity. So I really wanted to get that position. But, I was nervous, but I still called them, and I was able to connect with Rob Lutz, who I mentioned before. And we talked for about like 10 minutes or so about the opportunity. I think it went pretty well, but I wasn't sure what to expect after the call. I was wondering if he liked me or not. But, as it turns out, he reached out to Salem State professors to ask for me and see if they recommended me. And here's where, again, Salem State became so important to me. So a few weeks later, I get this call from Rob again, inviting me to his office, and he told me that I got this opportunity because of two reasons. One was that Salem State professors actually recommended me and vouched for me, and I had a lot to thanks to many professors, especially Professor Miranda Lam and Yanti Bandyopadhyay. They were extremely helpful. But the second reason that Rob told me about was because I was the only candidate that actually called. So he told me that he received hundreds of resumes online, but since I was the only one that called him, I got that opportunity. And you can imagine how excited I was. Again, coming from Venezuela and facing significant economic challenges. I told myself, this is an opportunity that I'm not going to let go. I'm going to work very hard, harder than ever. And well, that took me to where I am today.
And I think what's interesting is that a lot of people probably don't know this about Rob, but not only is he the chair of the board of trustees, but he's also the founder of Cabot Wealth Management. But his connection to Salem State, independent of those two things, is quite strong. I mean, a number of people in his family went to the university, and he's an ardent supporter of the university as well. So it's really great when those local business leaders can see the value in investing in the university education like he has. And it's always great to hear how something simple like that personal touch of a phone call is what puts you over the edge. And I think one of the other things that I appreciate in knowing you, Pedro, and some of your story is that not only were you working for Cabot, but you had worked for the Gasset for a little while, and you had some other part-time opportunities while you were in the city. So in addition to whatever you had faced coming from Venezuela to the university, I mean, you were really cut from that same cloth of the typical Salem State student that, you were really working hard to put yourself through school on your own.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, like you say, Rob was a super important person for me in my career. He really taught me a lot of what I know today and what I apply every day in my career. But Salem as a whole, Salem State, kind of that a community connection, really helped me to get where I am right now. And like you say, my first work job was at a Gasset Fitness Center. I was a fitness attendant back in January 2016, right when I got to the US. That was my first job opportunity. I remember cleaning a lot of treadmills at the Gasset Fitness Center. It was a fantastic experience, really. Actually, one of the things that I remember vividly was like giving a presentation. It was more like a training presentation, kind of a motivational presentation to the workers, to the student workers of the Gasset Fitness Center. And that was one of the first times that I got to present in English. As you can tell from my accent, English is not my first language, but that helped me a lot. Like having that opportunity to present to a group of people in English. I was, again, extremely nervous, and I was able to do it. And now when I do presentations and I talk to the press and things like that at my job, that single experience that I had at the Gasset Fitness Center was just fantastic.
Awesome. So let's look into the present now. Your firm is based in New York City. I know you're just outside the city in Connecticut. Talk a little bit about life in the city prior to COVID, kind of how this has affected you all and what you think the future looks like for you.
Yeah, quite challenging situation. I just recently moved to the suburbs from the city. I was living in Manhattan for about a year and a half while working there. But now since COVID hit, we really, my wife and I realized that we need a bit more space to work from home. I think as far as New York goes, I think we'll get back to a new normal. I wouldn't say that we're going back to the normal world that we used to live in. For what I can tell from businesses in New York, I think we're going to see more so like a hybrid approach of going to work, right? Rather than going to the office 5 days a week and staying there from 7 to late night, because as you know, in New York, the work hours tend to be quite long. And now I think you're going to get to see some sort of a hybrid approach where you're going to have employees working perhaps 3-4 days in the office, but 2 days or at least 1 day you're going to continue to work from home. I think we all realize about the benefits of working from home, but at the same time you still need that, from my perspective, you still need that kind of touch and working alongside your coworkers. I think that social aspect of working is also very important. So again, I think that's going to be a little bit the new normal. And yeah, I think at least from my perspective, that's how kind of it looks the near future.
Okay. So now in looking at the work that you're doing now, if a student was interested in pursuing your line of work, you mentioned kind of the support you got from Rob and the professors at school. If a student were interested in pursuing what you do for work, what would some advice be that you would give them?
Yeah, for me, education is key to any career, and more so kind of at the at large investment industry. I think there are multiple learning avenues, reading, listening to podcasts, staying on top of the news, global events. I think it's key to start developing an understanding of the markets. There are many great books, many great podcasts. So I would recommend any student to actually get to do that on a daily basis. We all have to commute, well, maybe not now, right? But in the past, we all had to commute, and probably in the future, we'll have to commute. So during commute times, I usually tend to listen to podcasts that help me to continue to learn and stay on top of the markets, the capital markets especially. So I think that's pretty helpful. And at the same time, like you said, that phone call for me changed my entire life, changed my career. So I would encourage everyone to never be afraid of reaching out to anyone in the industry that you wanna, that you want to work on a similar on a similar environment, or a similar industry, right? So I think that's always very important. I've always been keen to reach out to people in the industry that I really don't know, but it turns out that people tends to be very very, receive those messages quite well, and sometimes helped out with opportunities, and that's always something that you get to learn from.
Great. And so just for fun, if you weren't working in the ETF for the ETF firm, or you weren't working in the finance industry, what do you think you'd be doing?
That's a tough one. That's a tough one. Let's see. One of my passions is kind of the within the car industry. What's happening today with electric vehicles? I think I found fascinating the shift towards clean energy and electric vehicles, more especially. I think the shift towards electric vehicles is unstoppable at this point. And so that's probably kind of, I don't know what I would be doing, but something that I would like to be part of, right? I think it's quite fascinating what's happening today with the Teslas of the world. Tesla is just one company, probably the leading company in the electric vehicle space, but all the things that are happening with the battery technology side of things, and even the raw materials with mining lithium and all that supply chain, it seems fascinating to me. So that's probably something that I would be looking at if I wasn't into this career.
I love it. I love it. And I think too, before we wrap up, I think it's also worth noting that not only are, independent of what we just spoke of, but not only are you a graduate of the university, but your wife is also a graduate of the university as well.
Yeah, we both are. She graduated last year in 2019. She's also working in New York, and it's been great that we both share that kind of education organization. We both share that. I think it's great because we always get to talk about the experiences there, right? So I think it's great.
So before we go, last question. What does it mean to you to be a member of the Salem State community and to be an alumni of Salem State University?
Like I said at the very beginning, I feel quite lucky to be an alumni of Salem State University. Everything that I got since day one, it's been through Salem State in one way or another. So for me, I consider myself to be a very, very lucky person. And of course, I was always very involved with Salem State and Salem in general. I think that one of the things that I learned while being a student at Salem State is that, we give not because we have, but we actually have because we give, right? So a lot of the things that I got in my life were because I was giving or trying to give back to not only the university, but the city and the organizations that I've been part of. So because of that, I think that I am where I am today.
Excellent. Well, listen, Pedro, thank you so much for your time. It's been great talking with you and catching up with you. Actually, this is the last question. If students or alumni were interested in learning more about what you do and wanted to follow you on social media, where could they find you?
Sure. You can go to LinkedIn and search for my name, Pedro Palandrani. Happy to connect with you. Happy to always get in touch with any Salem State student trying to learn about the industry, that it's interested about applying in the industry. Always willing to give a hand to any Salem State student. I think that's probably the best way to reach out. Other than that, you can follow me on Twitter as well, Pedro Palandrani. So yeah, again, don't hesitate to reach out.
Awesome. Well, again, Pedro, thank you so much. It's been great talking with you. That was Pedro Palandrani from the class of 2018 in the Bertillon School of Business Graduate School. I'm Mike Mitchell, Assistant Director of Alumni Relations at Salem State, and this has been another episode of It Takes a Viking. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.